I was a little bit like, well, that's what I do, you know, but it had become part of my identity. And therefore, when I stopped doing it, it was like, well, who am I then? You know, what am I? Aren't I supposed to be doing this? You know, what about my time with you, God? And he said, well, we're with each other all the time. And then I discovered that when I'm in the garden, I sense his pleasure and presence at a deeper level than when I was sitting in the chair journaling our conversations, because it's just pure pleasure. It's just pure joy. And I would not give that up for any amount of doing stuff in the realms of heaven in a cognitive way, because I don't need to.
God's love is just so amazing. And I feel like my heart's being cracked open. And I just have these sessions with him where I'm just so grateful for his love and what he's doing. And I want to be a part of what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I can't stop crying. It's just overwhelming. And it's so wonderful. And every morning I wake up and I just say, Lord, open my heart to you today. To be part of what you want to accomplish. And I've never been in this place before with him, and it's just so amazing.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And it's okay to be emotional. It is highly emotional when you really get touched and know the depth of God's love, the unconditional nature of it. It moves us. You know, it does move us to feel and sense and experience. And, you know, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. In spite of everything that's going on in the world, when you engage with the one that created it all, it doesn't really matter. And we really are life changers. That's what he's called us to, is to change people one person at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're participating in his desire for the restoration of everything, and for people into their relationship and find that their identity. You know, the world is as it is because people don't know who they are. If they knew who they were, they wouldn't do the things they do. You know, the world focuses on trying to get people to change their behavior and stop doing the bad things. But all you're trying to do is stop people being themselves. But if they are different people, so they know who they really are, who God made them to be, they would just be themselves. And therefore they would change, you know, because they wouldn't want to be doing the things they're doing right now, because that is not what the righteousness of God people do. It's just they don't know who they are, you know, and it's sad. And what they do is some things are terrible in the things that happen in the world, and, you know, not lessening all the people who suffer and are victims of other people's behavior, but trying to correct behavior will never work. What you have to do is reveal the identity of the person, so the person will function out of who they are. And we've got amazing testimonies right throughout history of people who, well, going back to Saul of Tarsus, who was there essentially persecuting and killing Christians, to becoming, the apostle to the Gentiles. You know, and you got all the way here through history, you've got the people whose lives have been totally transformed. I guess one of the modern, or sort of not that modern, but I guess, you know, John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, he was a slaver. Yeah, but met God and received God's grace and forgiveness and totally changed. He didn't carry on being a slaver. You know, and I think that's the key. People don't carry on in their previous behavior if they truly, really know who they are. And our role is to help them recognize who they are in that relationship. We're ambassadors of reconciliation. to bring about that coming together of people with their father, so they know who they are as sons. And it is an amazing calling, because really we're just helping people discover what we've discovered.
Well, this is not necessarily a question, but it's a testimony.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll add to it once I share. I had been going through something here recently, and you get it in your head. You think, okay, I know what God's will is. I know this is what it's all about, and so, and it was about me, pulling away from a group that I didn't think was doing things the way that I have been taught, through the Engaging God, as far as the importance of getting a mandate and, going. And so as I was going through this process, I thought that I felt, well, there's not a clear mandate, for this. So it's been frustrating to me how, the direction, having direction, a clear direction. So, but all along, Father's been helping and just bringing unity and relationship and love one for another. And so during the process, a friend had suggested, do we have a mandate? And it's still nothing happened. And so the friend got kind of upset, why is this not being heard? And so you had a patron call with some people, and I had an opportunity to listen to it. And she said, well, why don't you go back and listen to it? Because I did listen to it, but I gleaned through it. It wasn't, it wasn't hitting me, but I gleaned through it. I kind of moved through it. And so I thought, no, I'm not, I just felt like I was, maybe it was going to cause division, or I'm not on sides, and I'm for, promoting the kingdom and unity and oneness. And so I thought, no, I can't, I'm not going to listen to it again. But then early one morning, Father said, no, listen to it. I want you to listen to it with your heart. And I said, okay, all right. So I did. And all throughout it, you were sharing about relationship and how that's what was the most important, and staying connected in relationship. And, how, Father is working always, to bring about his purpose and plan in our life. And so it just really encouraged me, because it helped me to see that, I thought I knew, I had it down. I thought Father wanted me to, pull away, because in my way of thinking, they were not serving the purpose of God and having this mandate. But Father just opened my heart and helped me to realize that, it is about relationships, and where we're at, it's so crucial to stay in healthy relationships with people that have like-mindedness. Do we all see things alike, or even doing things alike right now? Not everything, but it is fruitful. And so, Father, through your sharing with them, help me to hear you emphasizing relationship. And I just thought it was so beautiful how Father helped calm me and help me to realize you're seeing this in your little view of it. And I need you to stay in relationship, connection one with another, in harmony and peace, and let me just flow through. And I'm working, everyone doesn't have the same insight and understanding ongoing. And so I was very thankful that Father worked very swiftly with me.
Yeah. Yes, it is one of those things that we get sometimes caught up in, well, we're not doing this the right way, or beliefs and become so important, and actually relationship is more important than beliefs, because I can be in relationship with people who don't believe anything that I believe, and that's okay, because actually, how am I going to affect them in a positive way if I'm not in relationship with them? So staying in relationship and not breaking relationship over the basis of, well, we're not doing this the way and this way and that way. Ultimately, yeah, I know some people, they leave and they move, and that happens. And sometimes God says, yeah, you got permission to move, and because there's other things I've got for you to do. But even if we do move, and even if we engage with other people, it doesn't mean that the relationship that we have with those other people has to end because we've moved. And I think some people go, oh, well, I know relationships change. If you're not meeting with a group of people, then you're not going to have the same relationship as you have if you are meeting with a group of people, in terms, because you're not having the time together. But I think it's a heart issue. And, there are people I probably don't see more than once a year, twice a year, if that, sometimes once every couple of years. But when I see them, it's like we were never apart, because there was genuine relationship and friendship there. And it doesn't matter what we've been up to or what we've been doing over the last year or so. We just get right back in, sharing life together, encouraging each other, because it was genuine relationship. And we don't go into trying to convince each other of different beliefs. We just enjoy each other. And I think true relationship is not about what you do, but it's sharing who you are with each other and realizing that everyone's on a journey. We're all on a journey towards becoming more and more who God created us to be. We are that, but coming into that knowledge and understanding and experience of that identity, and yes, outworking that identity, but the outworking of it is not as important as the being it. Because when you know who you are, it makes room for you. Things open up. You have opportunities of being who you are. And I think a lot of people, quite a number of years ago, it was a really hot topic, your scroll, your destiny scroll. You need to see your destiny scroll. You need to know what's on your destiny scroll. And people were striving to see this sort of document, which then gave them the direction for their life. And actually, our destiny scroll is nothing to do with a whole series of things that God wants us to do. It's a revelation of who we are. And that our destiny is to be who we were created to be. And that will open up room and opportunity, plenty of opportunities to express who we are. But the key is to rest in that identity and see what opens up, rather than, oh, I need to know my scroll. I need to know what's on my scroll. I need to know all of the things I'm going to be doing in the future. And if we did know the things that are sort of prepared for us, good works that are prepared for us, but they're not prepared for us as a fate-like situation. They are us having the opportunity of being ourselves. And that is the good works. It's us being us. And you can be you to someone that I can't be me to. And that's the important thing, is being able to relate and encourage and engage with people, because we are who we are and we can encourage them to be who they are. And therefore, we don't want to make them like us. I think too many things in the past is almost like, well, we want clones. We want everyone to be the same. We need to believe the same. We need to, and actually that's not what God's looking for. If he wanted clones, he would have made us all exactly the same, but he didn't. He made us all different because he wants us to express those differences. And we are part of a facet of who God is. And no one else can be you. No one else can be me. So the key is, let me be the best me that he intended me to be. And that will give me opportunity of expressing that in relationship with other people.
So, I have been very blessed in the Lord, where as I've come to him over a long period of time, again and again, many times, he just, it's like he just holds me in his presence and loves me in such an intimate and joyous and beautiful, phenomenal way. And I'm very grateful for that. Very, very grateful. The other side of that coin is like, I don't seem to engage clearly beyond that in experiencing other kinds of things, seeing other kinds of things, traveling in the spirit, experiencing heavenly encounters, etc. You know, my plate was filled when I first started to engage in the heavenlies through Mike years ago, with supernatural encounters, and just one after another over a period of time. And then they stopped. And then I heard the Lord speak to me within, saying, intimacy will get you everywhere. So I knew what he was saying. I think he was saying, you know, don't seek the supernatural in that sense. Don't just try to go for heavenly encounters. Keep the main thing, which was being an intimate relationship, engagement with him. I call it the communion of the union. Engaging God out of that oneness that I have, that union that I have with Christ within. However, I would like to see more, of course, and go to places that I've been before and quote beyond. But it just seems like right now, the Father has me focused, as I've shared, which I'm grateful for. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing greater than that. Being in beautiful, intimate relationship where I'm fully being loved and embraced by him. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, some senses there can be a season where what God is wanting is to develop the intimacy, so everything else can come out of that in a greater way. But also, there are periods and times where what God has requires a deeper level of intimacy than what were before. So I was engaging with God every day. I was getting a mandate every day. I wanted to, you know, at work, you know, what God wanted me to do every day. And I would, you know, engage with God, and then I would say, what are we doing today? And I think at one point in my life, he then stopped answering, and all he did is hug me. Father, Son, Spirit, they hugged me. And that happened and carried on for about 6 months. Because I had got to the point where what I was wanting to do to serve God and do things for God had become the priority above the relationship. And what he had me to do in the future, and the opportunities that would come in the future, would never occur without a deeper relationship. I needed to know who he was, and therefore eventually know who I was at another level. So he just hugged me, didn't say a word. And that went on every day for about 6 months. Just hug me. And I was getting, you know, well, I don't want to be hugged anymore. Can we go and do something? You know, can we go and do something? Yeah. But he didn't say anything. He just hugged me. And eventually I surrendered to it, and I stopped struggling and stopped trying to get out of the embrace. And I allowed him to do it. And then at the moment I chose to allow him to do it, he then began to infuse heart-to-heart knowledge to me beyond what I would have got any other way. And that knowledge of who he was, that began to reveal his true nature in love and all of the things that I'm now talking about, teaching and everything else, came from hugs, a just intimate heart-to-heart embrace. And I can't say it was intellectual knowledge that I received, but what I did receive was infused knowledge. I knew, and I began to realize that God was so much better than I ever imagined or thought. And then he then took me on the journey where he began to deconstruct all of the thinking I had about him that was a hindrance to me. But I wasn't sort of looking at that. I was looking at, I want to do, what am I going to do? Yeah, where's my mountain? What am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with that? And ultimately, when I went through the journey and the process, then he took me to a level of engaging that I never even imagined or thought was possible. but the preparation took quite a few years. So the hug was probably back in 2011. That hug and that infused knowledge prepared me to go through the dark cloud experience. Then that prepared me to dwell in the realms of heaven without coming back out. Now, when it comes back to what you're saying, I want to do more and I want to see more. You are already. It's just you're not doing it in the way that you would envisage doing it, which is cognitively in the realm of the soul. Your spirit is already functioning in the dimensions that you've already experienced, and probably more than you do know. And that's what I do all the time. So by being able to be multidimensional and non-linear and living in that realm continually in a multidimensional way, I can do way, way more than what I could do if it was by cognitive choice of experience. If I had to go to the four faces of God, I had to go into eternity, I had to go on my mountain, I had to go into the courts of heaven, I had to go into the dimensional realms, and I had to do it one after the other, linearly and cognitively, I wouldn't have enough time every day to enjoy anything. I'd be so busy doing stuff that I wouldn't enjoy life. So God enabled me to do all those things in a multi-dimensional way. In other words, being in multiple places at the same time, doing multiple things simultaneously, through all what I learned to do in a cognitive linear way. Then I could enjoy life. I could enjoy expending more of the time enjoying creation, engaging with creation at a level which was very different, because I didn't have to do all those cognitive things. I didn't have to know what I was doing. I didn't have to be there consciously engaging, because my spirit is capable of engaging all of those things. I'm connected because my soul and spirit are one. And I'm in that union, but that union liberates me from all of the process that I had to go in to get there. Now I'm in a state of being rather than in the state of cognitive doing. And then I've discovered that life is so much more enjoyable than I ever imagined. Whatever I'm doing, whether it's in the garden, whether it's doing workshop stuff, whatever I'm doing. You know, yesterday we went out and we picked blackberries and got 3 huge bags of blackberries. You know, got loads of thorns and stuff, but it was all right. We enjoyed the walk, went along the canal and had a lovely time. Now, if I was having to do everything that I am doing in that way, I wouldn't have any time to enjoy life at all. So I think you're doing way more than you imagined, Daniel. And I think all the places that you did go and all the things that you did do was preparation so your spirit could carry on doing it, where you're free to enjoy life, play golf, do the things that you enjoy doing, with the presence of God with you, because you know that intimacy. He enjoys being with you in the everyday life things, just as he enjoys being with you in the heavenly things. But in the everyday life things, that is where we begin to relate to creation and people and the world we live in. And I've found much more joy and opportunity in doing that and sharing it since I was stopped doing the cognitive stuff. And, you know, a couple of years ago when God said, stop doing the Vision Destiny series, you know, because, you know, now it's time to stop doing that, stop journaling. I was a little bit like, well, that's what I do, you know, but it had become part of my identity. And therefore, when I stopped doing it, it was like, well, who am I then? You know, what am I? Aren't I supposed to be doing this? You know, what about my time with you, God? And he said, well, we're with each other all the time. And then I discovered that when I'm in the garden, I sense his pleasure and presence at a deeper level than when I was sitting in the chair journaling our conversations. Because it's just pure pleasure. It's just pure joy. And I would not give that up for any amount of doing stuff. in the realms of heaven in a cognitive way, because I don't need to. You know, I am who I am, whether I'm in the spirit and in the soul and spirit, I am still me. And I'm still living in that state of being and rest. And I still enjoy way, way more than I did before everyday life and the joys of it. And I've loved in being in the garden and connecting with creation. Like this year, I've felt connected to creation in a different way, engaging with the fruit trees that we have, engaging with growing things and the plants and, you know, the wildlife and the birds and the animals and the things that, you know, are around me, but I wouldn't have had time to see or enjoy because I'd have been too busy doing the stuff, and it was all good stuff, but I didn't enjoy the creation. And if I don't enjoy creation, how am I going to connect to it and recognize its longing for the sons of God? So I would not push too hard to try and cognitively think, oh, I've got to go here, I want to see more. Trust that your spirit is, and that if you need to, then God will lead you into it. And that's what I think happened with me. And therefore, the last sort of 12, probably 15, 16 months, since I've been doing the Patreon teaching on unconditional love, during that period, I'm not teaching people what I do. I'm expressing who I am in that unconditional love relationship. So the way I've done things is different. It's not a, well, you can do this and you can do this and you can do this. It's like, no, this is a revelation of who God is and who we are in that relationship with him. So I was able to express that in a deeper way because I've enjoyed being that. You know, so I would not be too concerned about the cognitive, visual, or whatever, and just trust that your spirit is engaging, and that when you need to see or do something or have something new shown you, that the Father will do it. And enjoy being with him every day, and, you know, enjoy him being with you on the golf course or in everyday life. Enjoy the pleasure that he has, you know, when you slice into the rough or whatever and you hack out. And it's okay, because he wants to be with us in the minutiae of everyday life, and so we experience him and enjoy him. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I just recently watched Chariots of Fire, and that real famous line where he says, I feel his pleasure when I run.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely true. And that is exactly how it should be, because he was born to run. You know what I mean? And people try to get him to do other things. And that season of his life, he was born to run. And when he discovered that joy of it, it changed everything for him going on from there. Because then when he did go into, obviously he became a missionary overseas and did other things, whatever, he had a relationship with God which was not driven by the works and the performance, but the joy of being himself. And I feel that that's ultimately what God has for all of us. Yeah.
Yes, I do have another question, Mike. You know, I often think I want to go deeper in my relationships with the beings that I encounter in heaven. And I was wondering if this infused knowledge, when I'm engaging with them, I mostly feel like deposits, like they're depositing in me. And sometimes I'm engaging with drinking of their testimony.
Mm.
And so I just was wanting to ask you, I want to get everything I can out of the relationship, and I want to build this relationship, like with wisdom and prudence. And, you know, recently there was a Saint Jerome,
Mm.
that joined us, and I love after the call getting going and searching out this person to see what, how Father was using their life, and why he would have them to join us at that time. And but yet I want to go deeper into these relationships. And
Okay, I think there's a level of relationship with those angelic beings, wisdom and others, that is how God intends it to be, but that should never be on the relationship that we have with Father himself. So I never go and engage anything without engaging the Father first. And because I always want to give the priority to that relationship and being in that relationship, and that's now an abiding continual communion. The other sort of angels, beings that are created beings, there to help us in our inheritance as sons of God, is a level to it, and it could go beyond that level, and then people get drawn in to deeper than they should go. God has a relationship with those beings, which you could say ultimately is never going to be the same as his relationship with us. And because he's chosen us as sons, and their relationship with God, although it's still a love relationship and God still loves them as God's got a purpose, is not the same as his relationship with us. And therefore our relationship with God isn't going to be the same as our relationship with them. And I think for me, I don't think I've had a relationship with those beings or a friendship with those beings. I've engaged them when the Father sort of opened that opportunity. And sometimes it was seasonal, and sometimes wisdom was very, very helpful and helping me, showing me things, unveiling things. But it wasn't a relationship like the Father. There was almost like wisdom was assigned for a purpose, and she outworked that purpose in our engagements, but it never felt like I would want to go any deeper with that.
okay.
But I'm not saying that there may be certain beings. I know, some people, like Justin Abraham talks a lot about, engaging Enoch and stuff. And I've engaged Enoch quite a number of times, but I wouldn't say that I have any desire for a relationship with Enoch any deeper than what I've got already. But I do have a desire for a deeper relationship with the Father continually. So I think it's okay to have different levels of relationship, just like you would in the natural realm. Your relationship with your parents, your siblings, your children, husband, whatever, all of that is going to be different than the relationships with work friends or acquaintances that you might meet now and again, or even people that you maybe go to in church or whatever. There's going to be differences, and it's okay for different relationships to be on different levels. And you cannot really have hugely intimate relationship with very many people, because you can't spread yourself that thin to have those relationships. And I know when I was sort of in church leadership and involved in that, people wanted a relationship with me because that was significant for them. And that wasn't possible. I couldn't have that level of relationship with everyone in the church. There were friends I had in the church, and there were people who I had I would share things with or be more open and transparent with than necessarily everybody. But they wanted the relationship because of who I was. So their motive for the wanting a relationship with me wasn't really totally very pure. And I could detect the purity of people's desire. And therefore, those people who just wanted, to be with the significant other, I didn't pander to that. But those who didn't really have any motive and didn't really have any ulterior motive, I basically was able to connect with them in a much deeper and better way. But it was okay for there to be different levels of relationship. So I was in a leadership team. Well, that relationship was probably more deeper than other in the home group or whatever else in the past, just because of the time you spend with people. And you can't spend the same time with a group as you spend with your wife or your husband or your children when they're young. There's priorities you have to place on relationships. So I would always place the highest priority on my relationship with the Father, with Jesus, and then any other connections I had would be as they directed me rather than what I was seeking out. Now, it may just be me, and others may have a desire for a relationship, like the cloud of witnesses. I have no desire to engage a cloud of witnesses other than when I need to, or when God assigns them to come and connect with me in some way. No, others, they want to spend time with the cloud of witnesses all the time because they think that's where they're learning stuff or whatever. It just didn't sort of feel for me that that's what I wanted to do. So, when people ask me certain questions about that sort of thing, I'm sort of fairly vague about it in a sense, because it just was never something I really wanted to go and do and search them all out and talk to them and find out and this, that, and I know there were others, I know Ian Clayton used to talk about, drinking from the wine room of people's testimony and all those things. And I never really wanted to do it. So because I just wanted to spend time with the Father. I wanted that deeper relationship, and all the rest of them just didn't have the same attraction. But I've engaged with wisdom many, many, many times, and with others many times, but there was just something different about that level of relationship.
Yeah, that was very helpful, Mike. Thank you. I understand now. I have a bigger perspective of it and realize that is my heart. I enjoy the Father's heart. I enjoy being in the Father's heart. That has made me the most content. But I thought maybe in these other relationships that I needed to go deeper, thinking I was going to gain more, of whatever. But you've put it in a beautiful way that helps me to see what the relationship.
And I don't think any of those beings would want a deeper relationship with you. Okay. Because I don't think that's what they're tasked to do. It is relational, because everything's relational in the kingdom, but that's different from having a relationship which is exclusive or different. Because let's face it, how many people does wisdom engage with? Potentially everybody she can, and therefore she's not going to be able to enter into a relationship with everybody, which is friendship type relationship, a deeper friendship type relationship. Wisdom's always been friendly and always looking into her eyes. It's wonderful. You feel so accepted, always feel just encouraged by being there and in the presence of wisdom. But she wasn't going to share with me what she was up to with somebody else. You know what I mean? It's sort of it's a relationship at a level, and I think that's perfectly okay.
Yes. This seems to be an area that in my natural life that I've had to constantly work with, and so it's carried over now into my heavenly. But you put it all in such a beautiful perspective. Father is my highest priority, and that is who I desire. And so when I'm having these engagements with the other beings, then as Father draws them to us and there's a purpose in it, then I can feel at peace about what Father's doing at that moment in time. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. All right, anybody else?
Green Mountain. What is it? I do have another question if no one else does.
Okay.
I wanted you to break down, I enjoyed your teaching when you were sharing about, where you were in relationships and how you, took, us, is her name Deborah, your girlfriend?
Debbie, yeah.
Debbie, and how you took her in your spirit and how, you helped her, in developing relationship with her. And so, of course, I've done that now with my husband as I've gleaned from your insight with it. But I also take my grandchildren into my spirit. And, I'm doing something similar to what Chris Carter was doing, going into the heavens, and I go into my mansion and I go into my library and I picture my grandchildren sitting there and I just began teaching them about, the ways of God, his heart, his love, for them. And, it's my way of ministering to them in their spirit. And I just wanted to, is this kosher? Is this,
Yeah, definitely. There's a way of engaging our spirit with the spirit of our children, grandchildren, whatever, which transcends the sort of the human knowledge, soul knowledge. And when I did it, it was to create an environment where which could be nurtured, and engage at a level which would begin to join a connection. And absolutely, when it comes to grandchildren, we want to carry them in our heart. We want to engage their spirit as well as their soul. And their spirit is what we're looking to do, is to call forth and draw out their true identity so that their soul begins to connect to who they really are. And you do that in the spirit first. And if you don't do it in the spirit, then you're trying to connect to their soul, and their soul is not yet fully able to cognitively be aware of who they really are, but their spirit knows. And so I know Arthur Burke has got a book in which it's about talking to the spirit, calling the spirit, engaging someone's spirit, and sort of almost releasing the identity that the spirit carries so the soul can begin to come into that. But a lot of people will do it on a soul level. They'll teach their grandchildren, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but not just do that, because we don't want them just to have knowledge or information or even ability. We want them to truly know who they are. And they're only going to do that and know that if they fully engage spirit and soul, and therefore encouraging their spirit to be strong and to be built up and to be edified is really, really important. And so, what you're doing is definitely a good thing. And, ultimately, when we come alongside in the spirit, it's a different way of doing it, and it means we can do it at a distance. We don't always have to be, in contact, because sometimes, with grandchildren, none of my grandchildren live locally to where I am now. So how am I going to engage them? I can't keep traveling to see them all the time. So engaging them in the spirit is the best thing I can do. Yeah, I can still contact them and do all that, but engaging in the spirit is definitely something that is something we can do which transcends the barriers. and encouraging them to come forth and to rise up and to become who they really are in that way is really, really important. And yeah, and if you're seeing it in terms of engaging their spirit in heaven, and then great, because they're seated with Christ in heavenly places, even if they don't yet know what that is or where it is, they are. You know, that's not we just become aware of it. You know, it's always true. You know, Paul didn't say, you know, you're seated in heavenly places. Well, if you've accomplished this, this, and this, or done this, or done that, he just said you're seated in heavenly places, and that's the reality of all our spirit, because we're all included in Christ. You know, and helping somebody to come to that realization is a good thing.
So, Mike, I want to throw something out to you and everybody here this morning about, you know, I've been listening to Joe Dispenza for a couple of years, and I know that what he teaches, I believe God gave him a download, because he went through a major injury when he was a young man. And he said there has to be a divine connection here somewhere, how the body was made. And I know he does get into some stuff, but I mean, as far as New Age, but he's very careful how not to offend or, but I tell you, some of the things that I have learned through his teaching has really helped me get to the place in love with God that I am today. And I just wanted to know what your thought process was about some of the things that, you know, people are definitely being healed and restored. And I mean, sometimes I think I wish the church was kind of operating in the knowledge that he has. And he's definitely from a science standpoint, but I know he has some kind of awareness of God also, because he was raised Roman Catholic. But I tell you, the fruit of what he teaches is amazing. It's just amazing how these people are recovering. And so I don't worship him, but I do have a clinical background. And so when you think about negative thoughts generate chemicals that affect your body, positive thoughts do the same. So I'm just curious what your perspective is about his influence.
Well, I personally believe that truth is truth, and truth is not the just for quote Christians or church. Therefore, why wouldn't God reveal truth to somebody who was going to use that truth in a positive way to help others, and will do it in a way that opens the door for many people to engage with him that wouldn't be done if it was done through a Christian way? The principles are the same. I mean, I've sort of read books, you know, or seen books about, you know, forgiveness. They weren't coming from a Christian perspective, but the power of forgiveness is universal. You know, it isn't just the domain of Christians to have truth. So I believe people like Joe Dispenza and others have truth, revelation from God, and are using that truth for the benefit of others. There are others out there similarly who have revelation, download, information, which they are using to benefit others, and they are free sometimes from the religious constraints that church puts on people. Therefore, they have a freedom to do it in a way which will make it more accessible to others. And God desires people to be healed and whole and well. You know, that's what he wants. He wants the good and the best for people. Yes, he wants them to enter into a relationship with him and come to the knowledge of that relationship. Absolutely. And Joe Dispenza isn't the guy to do that, because that probably isn't the revelation he's got yet.
Right.
Fine. So you wouldn't expect him to do what an evangelist would do for Jesus, but he's introducing, in a sense, the goodness of God to them in a different way, for that connection to, whether you call it the divine realm or quantum realm or unified quantum field of energy or whatever you want to call it, that you can connect to that consciousness. What is he connecting to? That which God has created for us to be in oneness and whole. So I don't have any problem. I don't know his personal things. People have said various things, and to be honest, because I've not needed to enter into health or wholeness, having lived in it for years, it's not something I would go and pursue, because essentially, I haven't felt led to do so. But a lot of others, my friend Lindy, she uses his material and recommends his things. So, and I know a lot of others do as well. And so I don't have a problem with that, just because he's not calling himself a Christian. Is he acting more like Jesus than some people who do call themselves Christians? Probably so, in ministering, bringing people into a measure of wholeness and healing. So what did Jesus say when his disciples said, "Oh, stop them, look, they're doing it and they're not with us"? And Jesus didn't say stop them. He just said, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Jesus didn't try and say, well, no, they shouldn't be doing that. They're not part of my discipleship group. I'm not. He's like, well, if they're doing good, who are we to stop them?
Mm-hmm.
And God would rather people do good, even if they're not calling it Christian, than if they were Christians and are full of built and gitterness and built and condemnation and all the other things that a lot of Christians are, and not really being very good testimony to who Jesus is, to who's more like Jesus. And I think, for me, I'm not tied up with names, terminology, and I said I wouldn't want to call myself a Christian from its association with the religion. I'm a follower of Jesus and the Father, and I have a relationship with Jesus and the Father, and I'm very happy to express that. But I wouldn't want to be known for a connection with a religion, which I don't agree mostly with. So people like Joe Dispenza and others, I think, are opening people to an awakening to who God really is, even though they may not be aware fully of what they're doing. But we never know, do we, until you actually sit down and talk with someone face to face. You never know really where they are. But I've only heard positive things.
Yeah.
In terms of, and nothing that I've heard that he's doing particularly causes me any concerns. There's meditation practice. I don't know whether the meditation is opening up, without focus. I wouldn't be encouraging open meditation on something which is not focused. So like open your mind and allow stuff to come in. That's not the way I would want to. And I don't know what sort of meditation that he encourages. But other than ensuring that you're focused with meditation on the good and the positive and things,
Right.
then generally speaking, I don't really have any concerns.
Yeah, I don't do his meditations just because the frequencies on the music he uses isn't like what you and Justin and a couple other folks use. But he's very careful. He doesn't mention chakras, but he talks a lot about the energy centers and how to open those. And you have teachings about that too, and along the same line. But I sift everything that he teaches, but the testimonies are just absolutely amazing, and it's surprising how many Christians go to his weekly things. but they're really good. I
Yeah.
mean, I know that God has used it to give me an understanding of the blockages I've had in my soul. And, you know, so thanks for the info. Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah. And I think some people will be against anybody who doesn't actually call themselves a Christian. You know, and New Age, well, what's New Age? It's just stuff sometimes just packaged differently. And yeah, some of it's a counterfeiting and carries with it some issues. But generally, I've found most people who want to administrate healing to people genuinely want to do good. They just don't really know the source of how they're doing it, but they're still doing it. Well, is that a bad thing? You know, I don't think God thinks it's a bad thing if people are getting healed.
Well, when he was in his early 20s, he had a major accident with a car. He was in a triathlon and got hit by a car. And the doctors had told him either we put a rod in your spine or there's no guarantee you're going to survive the surgery or walk. And he said to himself, you know, there's got to be a divine nature, how the body how it functions. And so he does talk a lot about living forever, that the body should not die.
Yeah.
From a scientific standpoint. And so I know, and he also mentions that he loves the mystical side of what they're doing. And I thought, you know what, Lord, you're setting him up. You know, I'm going to have some encounters with him. And if he hasn't already and hasn't expressed that, but I have really been blessed by listening to, not that it's a substitute, but it's a scientific avenue that God wants to bring together. ASEA, also, Dr. Samuelson, that developed ASEA. He said that the knowledge and the understanding of how to produce it dropped in his lap.
Yeah, yeah. And I think God is actually releasing discoveries and knowledge to those who are going to use it for the benefit of others.
Right.
And not just use it for themselves. You know, and that's what I think some people are receiving that. Well, we've been legislating for the right people to receive the revelation.
Right.
We weren't legislating for the right Christians to receive it.
Right.
We were legislating for the right people to receive it, and God knows who those people are.
Right.
You know?
I think that we just need to partner with wisdom in how we go deeper into the different understandings and revelations that others have. So my experience, I have been engaging with Dr. Bradley Nelson in the emotion code. And I was able to get his principles and understand his, view of it and his testimony of how he moved into all of this. But there came a point that when I would do it, I would be connected with Father, and he would begin highlighting the toxic emotions. And so I began building the relationship with Father in the truth, in the freedom I was experiencing. And so I was working with a friend in this study, and we were studying his book, and I just didn't feel comfortable going any deeper. And it's like, why am I not feeling comfortable? You know, and I'm real funny about staying right with the Father's heart and things. I don't have time to, labor on all these other areas. But yet I was doing it with a friend, and I was trying to honor her. And I thought, how am I going to share with her that I'm already in the Father's heart? I stay before the altar of sacrifice. I invite Father daily to show me the need of my heart. And if it's toxic emotions, so be it. And it came about that she wanted us to meet with the practitioner, and thinking that we need, and I'm thinking, I'm working with the Father. I don't need a practitioner, but I'm willing to walk it with her. I'll walk with you if that's what you feel like you need. And it came down that Father, she began getting, when she talked with the practitioners, she realized that there was some mixture involved with this teaching. And that's what you got to be discerning and on guard with, because when it becomes mixture, then I've experienced it. I get out of kilter then. I get out of alignment with Father, and my total desire is to be in harmony and alignment, spirit, soul, and body. And I
Yeah,
could tell.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So, and at the end of the day, we resonate with that which is good, and that which isn't, we just don't get involved. But we don't throw the baby
Exactly.
in the bathwater.
Right.
And I think
Exactly.
that's what Christians have done too much of. Well, this one little bit doesn't really resonate. Oh, I'm going to throw it all out. No, just resonate with that which you do and ignore that which you don't.
Right.
The same with anybody, any teaching.
Right.
We don't necessarily receive it all, but we receive that which we know is touching our hearts, and it will be that which is the revelation that God has.
Love it.
Good. And so embrace
Yeah.
that. And I think that's the key, really.